Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. The top stories at this hour. Blaze under control, a section of Christ Embassy Church in Lagos destroyed. The People's Democratic Party condemns call for state of emergency in Rivers State. President William Ruto of Kenya ready for talks with proposed tax increases protesters. Of course, details in a moment. Let's begin by telling you that an early Sunday morning fire at the Christ Embassy Church, Ikeja, Lagos State, has been put out, though it destroyed property worth millions of naira. This fire incident is not the first to be recorded at the Nigerian headquarters of the church. The good thing is that no life was lost in the incident. Of course, away from that, as the globe commemorates International Widows' Day under the subject Accelerating the Achievement of Gender Equality, with a focus on bolstering land and property rights, the predicament that befalls Nigerian widows' rights and jeopardizes their welfare must be fully recognized and addressed. First recognized by the United Nations in 2011, International Widows' Day serves as a potent annual reminder of the struggles encountered by widows who have had their fundamental human rights and dignity violated all throughout the world. The United Nations fact sheet estimated that nearly 1 in 10 of the over 258 million widows globally live in extreme poverty. In 2019, the International Women's Society pegged the number of widows in Nigeria at 15 million, with emphasis placed on the fact that they struggle daily to survive. Joining me on the news to discuss this is Mrs. Olufunso Owasonoye. She is the ED, Human Development Initiative Foundation. Thank you for joining me. Widows often remain unseen, unsupported, and unmeasured in society. They face long-term struggles from their basic rights and dignity being denied. Now, why is that?
Well, thank you for having me. First, I would say that it's based on mindset of people in the society that once you are a widow, then there's this stigma like you cannot even inherit anything that is of your husband. And people just look down on you that you are nothing. So until we have a change of mindset, culture, and also for state actors, policy makers, to put in place laws, structures, systems that will change this orientation, we continue to experience this. And widows will always go through this phase year in, year out. That's why we are advocating that today everybody must know about gender equality, the right, responsibility of individuals, opportunities. It does not depend if you're a widow or not. Everybody have equal rights. So orientation of people have to be changed.
Now, talking about stigmatization, which of course you did mention, and also the role of culture. We know that some cultures actually, as practiced, usually subject widows to some dehumanizing, cultural rights or traditional rights. And it doesn't just stop there. I mean, it goes on even for the entirety of their lives. Do you see a situation where that is beginning to wind down, particularly across certain cultures in the country?
Yes, I see because of role of education and sensitization, I could see that playing out, that some cultures, was it not, I can't remember, but I knew Enugu passed a law for inheritance for women and also some traditional rulers. I interviewed one traditional ruler in Ogun State concerning this issue. He was educated, he's late now, and a medical doctor. And he said that was his first priority on ascending this throne, that all this dehumanization for widows have to stop, that is working on it. So some people are being sensitive, and you find it even difficult to believe that this practice are women against women, and like it's a culture, it has to go on. But with education now, you could see some places now understood the concept that it's really cruel.
I mean, you said something pivotal here. You said many of those that engage in such are women, and you used the phrase women against women. What is being done to sort of nip this in the bud?
Well, it's going to these communities, because it's in communities that it actually happens, to sensitize them, to make them to learn, relearn, and unlearn. Also to know the consequences of what they are doing. We still come back to their own children. So if we don't stop it now, it's a cankerworm that erodes the society.
Now, you talked about inheritance rights, particularly to landed properties, maybe, associated with the late husband. Is the government, both at the federal, state, and even local level, doing enough to ensure that widows have access to these rights? Bodies like NGOs also, throwing in their hat to ensure that this particular narrative is changing?
I don't think enough is being done in that area, because you see lots of widows suffering even to get gratuity of their husbands. And in some cases, this goes back to men. In fact, this conversation is for even men that are still alive. They have to put their home in order. They need to put down some, even if you are not doing a will, because of the myth that if I write a will, I'm going to die soon. No, every property you have, it has to be in both names, not Mr. and Mrs. Gone are the days. Some other person can be Mrs. Your first name, second name must be there. Even if it's third name, must be there. So this one is form of advocacy to government, to both private and public sectors, what we can put in place to make sure that widows, they have equal access to inheritance of their husband. Going to the bank, not being able to just obtain the little change that is in his account, you have to go through this process of letters of administration that can take forever. All these governments must put measures or strengthen what is already in place so that these women can be helped. Because the ripple effect is on the children. When poverty sets in or they have mental health issues, they won't be able to take care of the children, and this one becomes delinquent in the society.
All right, quickly, Ma, I'm still going to dwell on properties and, of course, inheritances, particularly of the late husband. On the issue of advocacy, too, what do you think can be further done on issues, as basic as, next of kin? For instance, there have been cases where even the names on next of kins in the banks, it's not enough for you to lay claim to the monies, in the accounts of the deceased. I understand that there are other documents aside, the next of kin, that the deceased needs to have filled to sort of grant family members, the living wife and the kids access to his finances. What do you think can be done, particularly at that level, to ensure that people are aware? Because not so many, are aware of this.
Like I said earlier, every woman, you must educate yourself. You must know what works, what doesn't work. While a widow is crying with one eye, other eye, go out for what am I going to do? Ask questions. In my office, free of charge, we help genuine widows obtain letters of administration free of charge. Once your name is on next of kin, then there are some forms we help you get from probate that you are going to fill in. There could also be executors there, which are some family members or the children. So we take you through that process on how you are going to get it out. It's even easy now, unless the banks want to refund. But once your name is there as next of kin, then NGOs, other civil society can help assist you in how the process is going to be smooth. That's where education is key.
All right, Ma. Just in 30 seconds, my final question, and that has to do with empowerment of widows. Quite a number of them suffer in poverty, once the husband is gone, especially if such a woman is a stay-at-home wife who maybe, isn't skilled. I would like you to speak on that, on the aspect of self or personal empowerment.
In my organization, we do that annually. I think each widow, once it has happened, you've accepted it. Question is, next step, what can I do to empower myself? Then you reach out, thank God for the internet these days, or ask questions, go to faith-based organization you belong to, some NGOs, ask people questions to direct you. Some NGOs do it free of charge. And I know Lagos State too, in most of the local governments now, different skills, which are also free of charge. I know very well in Yaba side, from just 2,000 and you are good to go, hairdressing, anything that you want to learn. So it's for you to determine that. I won't just go begging, knocking doors, help me and all that. Yes, that can be outside, but you need to build resilience, have something to do to support your children and boost your own confidence too.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the news with me, Mrs. Olufunso Owasunnoye. She's the ED Human Development Initiative Foundation. Once again, thank you for your time on the news.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's move to politics. Chairman, Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party, Adolphus Wabara, has said that the party would not accept any declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State. The BOT chairman, who expressed worry over the ongoing political development in the oil-rich region, advised President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not to allow self-seeking anti-democratic forces stuck in the embers of war in the state push him into taking any step that could plunge the state into chaos. He warned that any action to undermine democracy or tamper with democratically elected government of Simfu Bara could spell doom for the entire country. The former Senate president said he was yet to see the constitutionality of council chairmen, whose tenure had elapsed, attempting to perpetuate themselves in office against the laws of the land. Earlier, we were joined on the news by member caretaker committee Port Harcourt City Local Government Area, that's Tekena Bosi, who shared his thoughts on this.
Be plain and straightforward. For it is so disappointing and disheartening for a person in the likes of the caretaker chairman of the APC, Chief Tony Okocha, to at this point in time call for a state of emergency in Rivers State. We all know the state is very peaceful and calm. We wake up every day with news of hundreds of deaths in the northern part of Nigeria. And there has not been any day that a state of emergency has been proclaimed or called upon in any of those areas. You know, rather than look for a way to resolve conflicts, you are saying that they should call for a state of emergency where there is no problem. River State is peaceful. Everybody is going along with their normal daily businesses. So how can an APC chairman say they should call for a state of emergency in River State?
A federal high court in Lagos has ordered the permanent forfeiture of properties valued at over 11.14 billion naira and another 1.04 billion naira linked to former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had filed an application for the forfeiture, alleging that the properties were purchased with proceeds of fraud. The court had earlier granted a temporary forfeiture order on June 5th and has now made the forfeiture permanent. The FCC has also named 2 current and 1 former CBN staff as Emefiele's accomplices in the alleged fraud. Justice Chukwujeku Anneke delivered the judgment, bringing a conclusion to the case. Earlier, we were joined on the news by a legal practitioner, Elvis Asia.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Act gives the Commission the power to carry out investigation, and in the course of doing that, to trace assets that are linked to the crime that is allegedly committed. And when those assets are traced, the law also allows the Commission to apply to the court for forfeiture. First, on an interim basis, which means that the other party is not aware. They approach the court and the court makes the order. In this particular instance, it was made, I think, last week or thereabout. But a date was now fixed for the hearing of the substantive motion for forfeiture, which is the final order that will be made. But nobody showed up, and so the court made it final.
The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria threatened to shut down all petrol stations in Adamawa and Taraba states over alleged harassment of its members by the Nigeria Customs Service. The secretary of the association in Adamawa State made this known to newsmen, accusing the Customs Anti-Smuggling Unit, that's codenamed Operation Whirlwind, of abandoning their duties at the border areas and targeting legitimate businesses. It says that several of their trucks carrying petroleum products have been illegally seized by men of the customs, which is leading to financial losses for its members and also artificial scarcity of the product.
When product is deregulated, it simply means the product are free market without any government interference. On this regards, we are calling on the attention of His Excellency, Governor Ahmed Umaru Fintri, the People Governor, being the Chief Security Officer of the state, to step in as the matter of agency and of public interest to do the needful by calling the men of the Nigerian Customs Service to order, so as to quench the escalation that may probably lead to industrial actions by all the stakeholders of petroleum product, which are IMAN, NATO, and all branches of NUPEN, which include PTD, IND, PSW, ELD, and SUTACAT, etc., and all other in the business of supplying and distribution of petroleum product in the state. Lastly, as from Monday, the 25th of June 2024, if our prayers were not answered or addressed, we will not hesitate to unanimously withdraw our services of supplies and distribution of petroleum in the entire states of Adamawa and Taraba.
Moving away from politics, the combined operatives of the Nigerian Embassy and a Senegalese-based non-governmental organization have rescued 24 Nigerian girls who were subjected to sexual exploitation in the Tambacounda and Koundagu regions of Senegal. According to the acting ambassador of the Nigerian Embassy in Dakar, Senegal, the girls, mostly underaged, ranging between the ages of 11 and 24, are being trafficked to Senegal through Cotonou, Benin Republic, via the Mali to Senegal border for sexual exploitation in these regions. Abubakar said preliminary investigations revealed that most of the girls who were school dropouts were from Edo and Delta State, adding that a few of them were from Imo and Abia and 2 others from Plateau State. Now, let's also tell you that in Nigeria, of course, there are cases of kidnapping, but before then, let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. Let's move to security matters now. Suspected bandits have kidnapped the parish priest of Saint Raymond Catholic Church, Damba, Gusau, Zamfara State, Reverend Father Mikah Suleiman. The spokesperson of the Zamfara State Police Command, Yazid Abubakar, said the priest was kidnapped around Saturday, that's at his residence in Damba area of Gusau. He noted that the incident was not reported to the police, but the command has deployed a police tactical squad to trail the kidnappers and to ensure a safe return. The acting councillor of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Very Reverend Father Nuhu, Iliya, in a statement called on the Christian faithful to pray for the quick and safe return of the cleric. After 2 months of total blackout due to a broken down transformer and the subsequent purchasing of a new one for about 22 million naira for the community, residents of the Akunapa 1 in the Kado local government area of Nasarawa State have accused the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company of insensitivity and refusing to commit to refunding their money. News Central Television has been following this particular development and finally able to speak with some officials of the company who, though refused to speak on camera, accused the community of not exercising enough patience. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu has more.
This is Akunapa 1, a community in Kado local government area of Nasarawa State. This community have suffered 2 months of total blackout due to the damage of their transformer. Now the community mobilized themselves and raised 22 million naira to install a new transformer, but the AEDC, that's the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, have not given them any waiver, and so it's a problem in the community and they are not finding it funny at all. Residents of Akunapa 1 community expressed their grievances. The community say their grievances are threefold and also say that a committee was appointed to interface with the private company.
We'll be writing letters to AEDC. Unfortunately, there is no paper reply. Rather, they make a call and tell us we should go and meet the area manager. Area manager is going to attend to us. And many a time we'll go there, there will not be something substantial. You know what you are expecting when you lay a complaint, expecting a better result. All to no avail. The last letter we wrote was to make a demand that we as a community, we are buying a transformer and we want them to give us a soft landing when it comes to billing system. They told us outrightly that whatever we are doing, we are on our own. If we spend whatever money we spend, we are on our own and we have to pay for it. That it does not affect their collection of billing. Then they went further to tell us that if the old one is bad, that we should give them time to fix it. We're giving them time. They said they are coming. I think at about a few days ago, they came to pick it up. We paid for the transportation to still take it to the office. Up to now, we've not gotten a reply from them. If they fixed it, when they are bringing it, we don't know.
They also say there is evidence that their complaints were forwarded to the company, revealing copies of the document still in their possession.
This is a copy. Here it will copy the area manager at the office. This is the area manager's.
This is the manual of the transformer. Mesank. This is it, the factory test for the transformer.
However, after several attempts to reach the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, a staff who refused to speak on camera tried to absolve the company from blame.
There will not be any waiver. We only agree on waiver before installation. After installation, there is no any waiver. I spoke to the area manager. He said there was nothing, there was no any any agreement or any request from them requesting for a waiver. And just like I told you yesterday, there's a regulation. They call it network investment by something third party. I'll look for it and share it with you. You understand? The regulation says that before you go ahead, if you want a compensation, before you go ahead and invest in a disco's network, you have to write. The disco have to be invited. They have to write to NET. They will not invite the disco. They will now go and assess the investment you want to do in terms of what is required and convert it to Naira and Kobo value. So now, if it is that the disco will now come up and say, okay, after installation, I'm going to give you free light for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, or I'm going to give the whole community meter, or I'm going to reduce your tariff, as the case may be. There was nothing as such between this, what they call AEDC and this community.
Some members of the community think the AEDC's response is irresponsible.
It has disturbed us in so many ways. It has made us to be uncomfortable in our homes. You cannot charge your phone. You can't iron your clothes. You can't store food in your fridge. So many things has been affected.
It's not an easy thing for those of us, especially married women.
It's a difficult one, my brother. It's a difficult one. It has not been easy. We have to put our efforts together as a community to make sure this light is restored.
Children will be crying with his rashes and all whatnot. The challenges have been much.
It was the community that contributed money to buy the transformer. That was the one that spoiled previously. So we are really aggrieved because we feel any other person coming here cannot just come and take the glory of providing transformer, whereas they were not the ones that brought it, especially AEDC.
We have heard them all. It is now left for parties concerned to do the needful. In Nasarawa State, for News Central, I'm Emmanuel Bagudu.
An education expert has urgently called for a transformative overhaul of Nigeria's education system. In a recent discussion, Yetunde Kamsin highlighted both the current struggles and significant areas needing improvement within the sector. Kamsin pointed to successful education reforms in countries like Finland and South Korea, emphasizing their innovative teaching approaches, robust teacher training programs, and equitable resource distribution. These measures, she noted, have led to substantial improvements in educational outcomes and could serve as models for Nigeria's education reform. Now, joining me on the news at this time to discuss this is Caroline Bokwola, a child care expert. Thank you for joining. Now, can you provide an overview of the current strengths and weaknesses in Nigeria's education system?
Hello, Damba. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. Definitely. I mean, thinking about Nigeria as a whole, we do have some strengths, we do have lots of strengths. The only issue we have is in terms of mentoring, in terms of having to set structures and policies in place that follow through. So, for example, yes, we do have free education, which the government has put through. We do have, obviously, our country as a whole is a country with lots of, a large population of youth, which is an advantage for the country as a whole. Also, we have things like privatization, where they've come into it, where they've had to bridge the gap from where the government stopped and they've taken over. It's just so unfortunate that children in rural areas, unfortunately, may not have access to that kind of education they have. The fee, in having to pay that fee. So it's not at an advantage to people in rural area. Obviously, we have the fact that the government is making effort in terms of technological integration. So we hear that. But the issue we have when it comes to weaknesses is in terms of funding, the funding available, we know every year there's budgets available for education. Where is this money going? Where is the transparency? Where are we training teachers in terms of the training, professional development? Like the lady you just said something about Finland. That's because they take pride in the training of the educators and their practitioners. Where are we going wrong? As a country, we are going wrong in that space. We've got inadequate qualified teachers within the government sector. Obviously, within the private sectors are making that effort in having to train their teachers, and there's still a lot to shop for. For example, I hear that teachers come into childcare or come into early years or come into education only because they haven't got any other job to go to. I assume you go into education because of the passion you have for it. I'm talking about education because of the passion I have for education. So as a result, we have failed as a country. But in terms of what's going well, we do have good system in place. It's the implementation of those systems that is an issue. The governance of those systems and making sure those systems, those practices are followed through. And that's where our strength, unfortunately, we don't have strength in. And that's where we're lacking behind as a country.
Okay, I'd like to stay with you on the aspect of training of teachers and, of course, equipping them from time to time and also funding in terms of remuneration. I mean, I am a product of a retired teacher myself, and I was sort of privy to some of, well, I call it the gains and, of course, the challenges that many teachers do face. I know that, in Lagos State, for instance, there is quite a lot of, well, I call it training programs for teachers, but that might not be the case for many other states. My question is this, why do you think there seems to be, when it comes to prioritizing education, there seems to be some sort of gap? You don't seem to see that balance across states. And also in terms of remuneration for teachers. Some, after they're done with service, don't get their gratuity, don't get their pension. Even while still in service, they are owed for months. It seems like many of the state governors don't really prioritize teachers. Why is that?
So it's so unfortunate that when you think about the service industry as a whole, we're such a disservice. We are done a disservice. So if you think something like the police officers, the fire stations or fire brigades, and you think about teachers and so on, it's so unfortunate that we're sort of like almost the lowest of the barrel, so to say, in a community. And it's such a shame because the service we offer is incredible. I mean, I think it's Nelson Mandela that said the best thing you can give a world is education. And I remember the lady you were talking to just now, when you were talking about the widowers, the one thing she pointed out is the fact that being educated, we need to change our mindset as a country. It's so unfortunate that we would have all of these systems implemented, but when if you have a country, and I'm sorry to say this, that has a poverty mentality, where everyone gets into government or gets into a space that the government has allocated, and it's all about selfish motive and it's all about what they get first, as opposed to implementing systems and structures in place and using the money for the purpose of which it has been adhered for, that's a problem. So when you have money set up in central government to say for teachers' wages or for resources, and unfortunately it doesn't get to the bottom where you want it to get to, that's a big issue. And that's areas we need to tackle on. So where do we start from? We need to start from changing our mindset as a country, as a society, as a community. It's only when we do change, that's when we can do better. If we don't change, we can't do better. We need to change our attitude. And that's what it is. So for example, when we talk about change, people think it's so difficult. There's been so many people before me that's really talked and gone on about education, Dako. So many. I've got so many people, like the lady you said, she's talking about education and looking at examples in Finland and so on. But at the same time, if we don't change our system and our way of thinking in a country, we can't implement. And change is possible. Change is possible. Think about things like the BVN. When I was younger, obviously I don't live in Nigeria, but when I was younger, you had to go to the bank and so on. All of a sudden, a few years ago, we decided we're implementing something called the BVN. We implemented something called the NIN, and it worked, and it's in place, and it's working.
All right.
So the government needs to put laws in place and structures in place and decide this change has to work.
All right.
We can't keep talking. We cannot keep talking and not doing anything about it.
All right, Caroline.
And this is where we need. Sorry, dear. You can say.
I mean, I really feel the passion, but we're pressed for time. But before I let you go, 30 seconds. There's some sort of fear that the number of out-of-school children, particularly as a result of insecurity in certain parts of Nigeria, might get out of control. I mean, we know that, in many states within the northern region, as a result of, activities of the Boko Haram and, other terrorist groups, bandits and what have not, many children have been denied the privilege of a decent education. I would like you to talk on that and maybe give advice, if at all, on a way out or forward, in 30 seconds.
30 seconds, that's tough. But the one thing I don't want to work against us, that is unfortunate, it's a good thing, but unfortunately maybe working against us is culture. Culture is a good thing when it's done properly. In every area, you can see what they're doing in Lagos will be different from what they're doing in the northern parts of Nigeria and so on. How can a government implement a centralized structure or system that would help every young person in Nigeria? So, for example, where you have obviously discrepancies when it comes to culture, you have discrepancies when it comes to gender, where girls get married off earlier, boys are meant to go to school longer, all of those things. We need to have a central system, a central policy that would work. We don't want our culture to work against us. And how do we get community leaders involved in, and parents and so on, involved in the education? We need to get them educated, get them involved, rather than having them frown at formal education. This is what happens. If we get them involved, we need to get all of us get our hands dirty and get everyone to the table to talk and say, what is the way forward? But we can't just leave it to government. We need to get community leaders involved.
All right, Caroline, I really wish probably some other time we would have the opportunity to further extend this conversation, but thank you for your time on the news.
Thank you so much for having me, Damba. Take care.
All right, great. Coming up on the news, President William Ruto of Kenya ready for talks with proposed tax increase protesters. Details of this and more after now. The news continues in West Africa. In a significant military operation, Niger's army announced on Sunday the elimination of a prominent Islamic State fighter in the volatile western region of the country. The raid, which took place in the Tillaberi region, a notorious hotspot where the borders of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso converge, resulted in the death of Abdullahi Suleimani Idowal, now identified by military officials as an influential member of the terrorist group. The operation forms part of ongoing efforts to combat jihadist insurgents that have plagued the region for years. The Tillaberi region had suffered frequent attacks targeting civilians, leading to significant displacement. The current military government, which came to power following a coup in July, cited deteriorating security conditions as a key reason for the takeover. In addition to combating Islamic State forces, the government is also engaged in fighting Boko Haram and its splinter group, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, across different regions of Niger. Kenyan forces are scheduled to depart for Haiti on June 25th to spearhead a United Nations-backed mission aimed at curbing gang violence, according to government and police sources on Sunday. Despite ongoing court challenges, Kenya is committed to sending approximately 1,000 police officers to help stabilize the Caribbean nation, joining personnel from several other countries. President William Ruto has been a vocal supporter of the mission, reiterating this month that deployment would commence soon. The United Nations Security Council approved the mission in October, but a Kenyan court delayed the deployment in January, citing the government's lack of authority to send police officers abroad without prior arrangements. The necessary arrangement was secured on March 1st, but a small opposition party has since filed a new lawsuit in an attempt to block the deployment. In addition to Kenya, countries such as Benin, the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, and Chad have expressed willingness to participate in the mission. Staying in Kenya, the President, William Ruto, said he is ready for a conversation with thousands of young protesters who held nationwide demonstrations this week to oppose proposed tax increases. Led largely by Gen Z Kenyans who have live-streamed the demonstrations, the protest caught the government off guard as discontent months over Ruto's economic policies. According to rights campaigners, 2 persons have died and dozens others were injured in Thursday's demonstrations at the capital, Nairobi. The demonstrations were mostly peaceful, but officers fired tear gas and water cannon throughout the day in an attempt to disperse protesters near Parliament. Ruto's administration has defended the proposed levies as necessary for filling its coffers and cutting reliance on external borrowing.
We are going to have a conversation so that together we can build a greater nation.
Thousands protest in Tel Aviv against the Netanyahu coalition and for a deal that would release the hostages held in Gaza since October 7th. Large protests have occurred in the Israeli city on a weekly basis over Netanyahu's handling of the nearly 9-month-old war in Gaza. Many protesters held signs reading "Crime Minister" and "Stop the War" as persons poured into the biggest Israeli city's mainly thoroughfare. Now, many are frustrated with the country's right-wing coalition, which includes Security Minister and other far-right ultra-nationalists, accusing it of prolonging the war in Gaza and putting the country's security and hostages at risk.
נזכרת שיש ציבור גדול שנאבק יחד איתי ומחזק אותי. אתם הקול שלי. ואני רוצה לקרוא מפה לשאר החטופים שחסרו. הצטרפו עלינו לרחובות. בואו להפגין איתנו.
In the world of sports, players of the Mali football national team, the Eagles, have threatened to boycott the national team if their federation fails to take care of their welfare and the national team coaches. The players unanimously threatened not to honor the national call again until Farmerfoot does the right thing by them. The Malians drew against Madagascar and lost at home to the Black Stars of Ghana on March Day 3rd and 4th of the World Cup qualifier. Still in the world of sports, Tanzania Premier League giant Simba SC has opened discussions with Nigeria Premier League Football League side Rivers United over the transfer of Augustine Okwecha. Augustine has been one of the key players for the Pride of Rivers this season and was one of the standout stars in the CAF Confederation Cup for Rivers United. Augustine scored Rivers United's lone goal against RS Bokane in the quarter-final first leg played at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Uyo. Simba SC has offered the 20-year-old a 3-year contract, and all parties involved are currently working on transfer details. Jessica Pegula ousted top seed and doubles partner Coco Gauff to reach the Berlin WTA tournament final. The semi-finals suspended overnight. The Pegula leading resumed Sunday with Pegula winning 4 of 5 points. She will face Anna Wu, defeated Victoria 6-1 in a seesaw semi-final. Pegula previously beat the team in the 2019 Washington semi-finals before claiming a first title. Rain delayed 3 quarter-finals, and Iliya and Ons Jabeur were forced to withdraw due to injuries. The reigning Wimbledon champion and former champion also withdrew earlier in the week due to injuries. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that blaze under control, a section of Christ Embassy Church in Lagos destroyed. We also told you that the People's Democratic Party condemns call for a state of emergency in Rivers State. And finally, we told you that President William Ruto of Kenya ready for talks with proposed tax protesters. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms. That's DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Abo TV, and YouTube. And thanks for watching. I'm Damba Adeboye. Bye for now.